If you think the left is freaking out about Doge now, what do you think the reaction is going to be if this is true? That international Planned Parenthood to lose $61 million due to Trump's executive order. Planned Parenthood is just another one of those agencies that I don't mind that they exist if they're just helping kids get contraception and to get tested for STDs. But that's not what they do. I mean, they sell baby parts allegedly. By the way, Planned Parenthood took in $1.8 billion in taxpayer money in 3 years, with another $90 million from COOF loans. Planned Parenthood also engages in political activism for the Democrat Party. Planned Parenthood also targets the Black community. If you want a minor red pill on Planned Parenthood, you should look into how what's the word for it?
Margaret Sanger?
Margaret. Yeah.
I think you're talking about eugenics.
Eugenics, yes.
The origin of Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
Did you ever see the Lena Dunham commercial for Planned Parenthood where she's like, yeah, Margaret Sanger's the founder, but she was kind of a eugenics. We're just not going to talk about that. Anyways, it keeps going on to talk about the virtues of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah,
it looks like the story is actually fundamentally true, by the way.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood started out.
This is I think that this is the Washington Post, so
Well, many people believe, and there is certain evidence, that the Planned Parenthood became, a way to eliminate Black people. There's a reason that
talked about this openly. This was not a secret. That was what Margaret Sanger was interesed in. I think one of the issues is that Planned Parenthood has a weird monopoly. There are local places that will do abortions and things like that.
You can go to your doctor and get rubbers if you want. You can go to a walk-in clinic and get that kind of stuff too, and you can get STD tested.
But Planned Parenthood has become a rallying point for social liberals. If you're attacking Planned Parenthood, then you're attacking women and healthcare and science and what else, even if it's not true. I would find it interesting if you could be like, oh no, we'll keep giving money to clinics as long as they only do STD testing and prescribe birth control, give condoms, whatever it is. If you separated it from some of the other issues, would they be like, okay, that's a compromise? Or would they be like, no, it has to be Planned Parenthood? Because that's when you see it's just a hill they have decided to die on,
Well, I mean,
originally it was partially economic. The idea was that if a person was poor, it was because they were of poor stock. Mm-hmm. And so they would deliberately, and this overlapped racially too. That's the overlap. They would locate their clinics in lower class neighborhoods and then encourage people that had wealth to breed more.
Correct.
I support the right of a woman to choose, with, of course, exceptions. But Planned Parenthood does have a checkered history, and they've engaged in some behaviors that are completely inappropriate and that need to be addressed. I don't agree with eliminating abortion access to women, but there are questions to be asked there.
I was always a safe, legal, and rare guy, but I've been kind of abortion pilled. When in the 2000s, it became a form of birth control. When they had portable, mobile abortion centers at the DNC, then it became more demonic to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a super religious guy. I've dabbled around in it, but it just feels like if a woman's like, oh my God, I have an ectopic pregnancy, or I have some other thing where my body's legitimately at risk. I've always been understanding of that. I know that there are hardliners that say no, the mother should still give birth to that kid, even in the case of her, being taken against her will. I don't agree with that, but I think I know some people do. I know Charlie Kirk does. But for me, if you have a high risk pregnancy, I don't know. But I'm more understanding of it. But somewhere along the lines, third wave feminism, it became a prescription for irresponsibility. And then there became something a lot more demonic and gross about it. And if they're defunded, I think this country will actually be a better place. I don't believe that Planned Parenthood is actually a net positive. And if the same people that march with BLM cared about the Black community, they would look into just some of the statistics by race for Planned Parenthood. You know, abortion is not birth control. It is you are extinguishing a life because you made a mistake. Outside of the situation of, you know, some man taking you against your will, you made a conscious decision to copulate at a time in which there are infinite tools to know when you are, I know I always feel gross saying this, but I'll say it this way. There's like 2 days a month you can get pregnant. It's very easy to track. Or you could use a rubber, or you could use birth control, or you could abstain, or you could do, you know, there's a million other options. So I've gotten a lot more hardlined on how people and when people choose to use abortion.
And birth control,
I'm definitely not as hardline as that myself. Like, imagine that two young teens, they decide to fuck, and the girl gets pregnant. I wouldn't really want society to have to pay for the child of someone who's 12 years old or 13 years old.
Yeah, that's more extreme, though.
And I wouldn't want to consign them. I know that it's not a common scenario, but it is a scenario. A woman's life is in danger. She's been raped. They're very, very young. There's extreme high risk, you know.
I wouldn't fight you on a 12-year-old or even a 13 or 14-year-old.
Or let's say there's some genetic disorder that's been tested for, like Cry Chat. Okay, you can give birth to the baby. It's just going to suffer for a couple days, then die anyway. Stuff like that. And I believe that it should be elective, at least in the first, 8 weeks or thereabouts, when typically it's not a surgical abortion at all. It just uses abortifacients. And this has been around for a very long time. It's just pharmaceutical now instead of herbal.
I think one of the issues is that it became linked with all forms of birth control, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're talking about teenage pregnancy, if we talked about like the goal of Planned Parenthood, then it's not the goal of Planned Parenthood, but for example, if the goal of Planned Parenthood was to reduce teen pregnancy, then left-leaning people would be advocating for more studies on the birth control pill. They would talk more openly about what forms of birth control students can have. They would probably make basic education on how the menstrual cycle works and your window of fertility a standard protocol. But instead, they're like, no, we have to be able to do this procedure because that's this, like, we might call the last line of defense is necessary. And by the way, Planned Parenthood was behind one of the worst studies on birth control that basically allowed the pill to become mainstream, where they tested it on women in Puerto Rico. And then when the women would report adverse side effects, they'd be like, oh, they're just hysterical. They don't understand. And they ultimately brought the pill to market. Like, Planned Parenthood has had unethical practices that aren't just abortion. Like, there are lots of things that they do wrong that I think they just have somehow become a celebrity organization that if you attack them, then you're evil. The problem for me, for a lot of it is, we can't have nuanced conversations about what the regulation on abortion should be because there's such a dividing line. And it has become like you're either barbaric and mean to women, or you're, a radical progressive. Like, we have to be able to have a dialogue. And for me, that means that abortion has to be separated out from birth control, because I can't tell you how many women I know have had issues on the pill or with whatever form of birth control. And the answer they get from doctors is like, wow, I've never heard of that, even though it's like mass prescribed in America. It seems like we are somehow ignoring easy fixes for problems that we have as a society by just being like, well, but abortion, let's talk about that only. It's not that we shouldn't talk about abortion. It's not like the start of life is something we've totally figured out. It's just that, like, all of the small steps that get you to the point where, like, you're having to face if you need to have an abortion or not are things that we could research, talk about, and we just don't. And it's to me, kind of, that's where we're failing.
One reason why I'm generally pro-choice is that expecting young people, especially, to abstain from screwing each other is completely and monumentally stupid. It's not going to happen. It's okay to say, well, if you don't want to get pregnant, then don't have sex. expecting young people not to have sex is probably a losing proposition.
Styx, I was in the chess club. It was very easy for me to not have sex. And I played Magic the Gathering. Yeah, I mean, there is kind of like the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, and there's like the reality of things. I don't want to, debate. I think we're all somewhat in alignment here.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that it's gone too far. And, when you have Planned Parenthood getting implicated in selling, baby body parts, I think that now you've gone too far. And, if we could take some of those
Oprah puts them on her face on a regular basis.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, if you want to have, we'll take some of those $50 million in condoms we had earmarked for the Palestinian people, for Hamas, and we'll give them out to Americans. By the way, the reason kids don't use rubbers is not because they can't get them. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Any kid can go get rubbers. Like, it's a dumbest argument. Like, Planned Parenthood provides contraceptive for kids. Child, please. You can, if you can drive to Planned Parenthood, you can buy rubbers. Planned Parenthood is almost exclusively about the abortion pipeline, about making money through abortions. And I think they hide under this veneer of like STD testing and whatnot, but you don't actually need Planned Parenthood to do STD testing. You can go and go to your regular doctor. You can go to a walk-in clinic. You can go, there's numerous places you can go. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a hit there. I just think that, like, you see, I'd say like that's, it'll be interesting to see if they get any level of further defunding. I just think people should have the real conversation about Planned Parenthood and what they do, by the way, globally to babies, before jumping to defend them. I think a lot of these wokies, like Hannah Claire points out, I wonder how many of them would support what they've done, with the pill. Look how many people now, even American women in the West, are like having problems because of the pill. Only now in 2024, 2025, are there mainstream conversations happening about long-term side effects of I don't know if it's one particular birth control pill or birth control pills in general. And, Planned Parenthood is throwing those around like they're Pez.
And if you talk about it, though, you get slapped with being anti-feminist, when really it's like women are potentially suffering because we didn't spend the time to research and understand what the long-term consequences of this product we push were. Like, how could that be anything less than pro-woman?
Yeah.
I think it's all become kind of an emotional issue, and it's illogical on its face. Like, if the goal is to, like I said, prevent teen pregnancy, Styx totally right. Like, you're not going to keep teenagers from sleeping together if that's what they want to do. But then you should probably be like, okay, so what do they need to know to prevent pregnancy? Like, do they need to know that you can, like, this is how fertility works? Like, there are other steps, and instead it just all immediately becomes like, well, then don't touch Planned Parenthood. Like, it doesn't make sense.